All right, welcome everybody. We have a guest with us. Our guest today is Uncle RS. How are you today?
Doing great, my friend. How are you?
Awesome. Glad to hear it. I am doing fantastic. Thank you for asking. So, how long have you been practicing esoteric philosophy and various occult practices for? We'll call it magic just to sort of save time. How long have you been practicing magic for?
Okay, that's I recently had an epiphany about this because I started practicing magic in my in at 19, actively
Okay.
magic. I'm 62 now.
Okay.
So
You don't look 62.
thank
That might be a testament to your magic.
it's part of what I call body magic, I think. Yeah.
There we
So
go.
here we go. But the first time I picked up anything esoteric was when I was in elementary school. I picked up a hypnosis book in the school
Okay.
library. And so I just thought about that last night when I was contemplating what I wanted to say today. Yeah.
I love hypnosis. To me, magic and it's almost every form of magic is a form of hypnosis,
Mhm.
from my perspective.
Well,
So,
I,
go ahead.
I think the majority of magic is psychological model. It
Hmm.
happens with fears, boom. But then you get to things that you can't explain as pure psychological model. And then you have to start looking at how that psychological model affects your connection with reality. And if you are connected to reality, you got to think about all these things. And then you go crazy. Well, you've seen it. I know you have. Probably experienced it grandly. You go crazy for a while trying to figure out how that all works if you stick to
Hmm.
the psychological model until you
Yes.
start moving the spirit model or the elemental model or the energy model, pardon me, you know, then none of it makes sense. So,
Yeah.
or the data model is getting a lot more exploration these days.
Yeah.
So,
It seems like science is so obsessed with dissecting the external plane, but the metaphor I always use is reality is like a deck of cards. No matter how many times you cut it and shuffle it and put it back together, it's got the same components and ingredients.
right, right, right.
So,
Yeah, I like it. I always say it doesn't matter how it works, as long as it does work and you can keep making it work.
yeah. Yeah, well said. You have to be able to be consistent with it.
Right.
So, what is that what sort of got you interested in the first place? Was hypnosis, or was there something else that sort of drove you?
I was a young Marine and I was highly concerned about my survivability because
Sure.
uh, um, precursors to Desert Storm happened while I was in basic training, right?
Okay.
So, so precursors to that happened, and you know, like they're talking, we're going to get put on planes instead of sent to our bases and sent to one place altogether instead of our individual trainings. So guess what? You're a grunt now, which is cool. I didn't have an MOS when I signed up. I just wanted to get out of town.
Sure.
But 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 I came about the realization that I have a survivability complex. I really want to keep breathing. So I kept looking at ways to expand my performance as a human being. And in the process of doing that, I met some people that were basically a sex cult, and that didn't work out because they were following um, the Golden Dawn path loosely, which is a
Hmm.
lot of patience, a lot of time. Guy at
Hmm.
Twin Palm doesn't have that kind of time. So I couldn't keep that up. Funny, I talk about sex cult and I couldn't keep it up. I could.
Yeah,
That's why
I didn't even, that went right over my head.
I didn't think it just happened. So I was looking for other things in the base library.
Mhm.
Uh, you know, I had meditation active. I hadn't. I don't think you ever master meditation, but
Mm,
I
probably not.
good. And I was looking for more influences on that. And there was two books. I don't even remember their names, but they were chaos magic. They were
Hmm.
in the. And you think about that, and it this was actually in the late '80s when I found them, but they were brand new, and they didn't have any labels on them, and they were not in the card catalog.
Wow. It wasn't Lieber Nolan Psychonaut, was it?
Well, it could have been Liber Null
Mm.
because I read everything I could get then. But
Mm.
Psychonaut, Liber Null and Psychonaut didn't come out till later, I don't think.
Oh yeah, I think you're right about that. Yeah.
But so I found these two books, and the librarian said, "Get this devil worshiping shit out of here." So I took them and I read them, and went through the exercises and practices. And, I had some books, some literature from the Golden Dawn exercises, and it all kind of started to come together. And then I ended up in a smoker, which in the Marine Corps, you get in an argument with somebody and you can't settle it. You get thrown in the ring with them.
Ah.
And
so it's not a cooler, it's a smoker.
Yeah.
It's like the opposite.
So everybody's having cigars in these things. Even if you don't smoke, you take a cigar. That's just how it works.
Okay.
Yeah. So I got called in the ring, and this guy, he just wouldn't let up,
Mhm.
And it's just the same way in the ring. I mean, I outweighed him by 40 pounds. I'm a big guy,
Mhm.
Even when I'm not fat, I'm a big guy. Fighting 230 pounds.
Mhm.
It was 150 dripping wet. So quite a bit now that I think about it, but he just kept hitting me. But the sigil, every time he hit me, I felt that sigil that I'd written on the inside of my palm, inside the glove. And you got these big pillow gloves, so you can't really
Sure.
hurt anybody. You can't really harm anybody. You can hurt them, but you can't really harm them with them. Every time I just felt it buzzing me awake more and more and more until this kid got tired of hitting me. He hit me so many times, I couldn't hit him. He was so fast. I couldn't hit him. And eventually he just stood still, and I dropped a hand on him. Boom, it was over.
So that sigil gave you some wherewithal and some endurance, perhaps.
Yeah. And after that, I started looking at how I could use these things and the meditation and the visualization to change things. I see things in the dark nobody else sees. I can shoot things that nobody sees.
Interesting.
Because I know where they are. I have to know where they are to start with at some point. But you can move me through a position, and I know where it is. So as kept the meditations up, things started happening on the rifle range. I was an armorer, small arms repairman. But I was always on the rifle range, and I ended up coaching a lot. But it got to where I could see where the bullet was going to go. I knew where it was going to hit. I knew it, and I would literally see this laser-like line going to the target, arcing at the range, everything.
Almost like a tracer round. Interesting.
It's like a HUD. It's like wearing a heads-up
display. Yeah.
And nobody else could understand that. And they, in fact, after that, I got accused of drinking too much while I was had to range the next day. All kinds of fun. In the Marine Corps, I was told I was too aggressive to be a successful Marine. I had to go to anger management.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, but I was raised that way. Anyway, so that got into it. And then eventually I've been in pretty much the closet for most of the last 40 years. I've been in the room.
Yeah.
Picking up what I can, learn what I can, teaching people, because everywhere I go, somebody sees something. How come that is? And, like turn around, all the dishes are washed because time isn't static, and it isn't it doesn't travel at the same place everywhere. But the dishes all got washed in the sink while I was delivering pizza. Delivering pizza used to be the greatest job in the world because it was tips. Why don't people that practice magic of any form and earn tips, why don't they use the magic? I'm telling you.
Maybe they don't know better.
I don't know. It's a good job. So that's how I got there. Anyway, that's how long and how I got interested in it, really.
Okay. So you've mentioned sigils and meditation. I assume those are some of your favorite workings. Is there anything else that you sort of focus most of your time on magic-wise?
I've been doing a lot of astral work the last couple of years.
Excellent.
So it's hard to do astral work without some guidance, because you're so subject to delusion.
Sure.
And so I worked with Lux Estrada, Green Mushroom Project. Might have heard of that.
That sounds familiar. It's a
big movement. I'm persona non grata there now, but I work with her quite a bit, and I got my own practice down on that. And boy, I have my own spaces. I introduced other people to these spaces. We get unified, separately documented results. About 40 of them now. I don't work with them anymore, but they're on their own path. I got to do my own thing. If they ever need need somebody to step up and fight with them, I'm there. But that's how it is. But that's also how my magic traded. I learned to do magic via becoming a better warrior.
Okay.
And my major patron for a long time was actually, Hephaestus, the crafter, the weapon crafter.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. So perhaps you could discuss maybe one or two techniques for astral projection. Just sort of how to reel the line out and sort of send yourself into that place.
One of the best techniques I've used recently is liminal spaces. So what I do is in the other side of my office, you can't see, I got a chair. So I'll get in that chair and I'll meditate for a while, get myself set on what I want. I'll actually put it on paper because pen and paper is power. I don't care what anybody says.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And get up, and then I'll move through my door to this office space. I'll do a quarter turn, then I'll back out through the door. I'll go back, I'll do a quarter turn, I'll back out through the door, all the way till I make 100%, go back, sit in my chair, initiate that meditation, boom, I'm right out. It's like
I like that. Uh-oh.
So that's my preferred method.
Okay, I really like that method. It looks like we might be losing connection just a little bit. I'll give it a second here.
Who knows what will future? People are always asking me. There we go. Okay.
Yep. So we're good. We're good. Excellent. Okay.
Awesome.
Okay. Yeah, I really like that technique. One of my favorite techniques is I'll lay down and I will just slowly begin to exhale, and I'll imagine that like my essence is sort of condensing into a cloud, and I'll just sort of travel in that cloud out into the spaces. But I really like the technique that you gave too. That's really interesting.
I do something similar also.
Okay.
So before I develop, it takes me longer to do. I don't know why, but it takes me longer to get into state. But I turn to liquid and I flow through the ground into the mycelium of the mushroom.
Oh, and yeah. Then
mushroom. So
I like that. I like that. So you've already mentioned several ways how magic has changed your life for the better, protecting you in battle and allowing you to, increase your wealth and allowing you to tutor other people. Are there any other ways that magic has changed your life for the better?
I'm a bad old retired white magician. Isn't that like the goal?
Absolutely. That's certainly one of them.
I'm what everybody hates right now. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So who were some of your greatest influences, if you don't mind sharing that with us?
No, I don't mind. Actually, of course, we've got the basics, Hein, Chumley. One of the biggest practices I teach still to this day is the book of results. My brain just walked on me. I hand that out to everybody though. I don't know. I got a rough throat. I don't know why. Let me see if I got some cough drops here. No, I don't work down here anymore. I'm retired.
There you go. That's kind of the goal at the end of the day too, isn't it? Well,
and that's another thing that magic did. I was in a bad space. I've been homeless twice. All this kind of things, pending divorce. I'm bipolar, all kinds of things going wrong. Got a busted up right wing, all kinds of challenges. And finally I just had enough. I said, I need to provide for my family. And boom, all of a sudden I got a hold of a lawyer, and my military disability went from 30% all the way to 75, which is not.
That's significant.
Yeah, that's a significant raise right there. And
absolutely
going to hit 100 in the next year and a half.
No, fingers crossed for you. That's awesome. All right, you mentioned Hephaestus. Are there any other entities that you have worked with that have really propelled your workings forward?
I have done some of the standard demon work, but
Mhm.
nothing's really stuck. I mean, I can get results with it. It's just
Sure.
there's no level of devotion for me with that.
Right.
It's it's for me so far. It's been a lot like transactional relationships.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh,
And are you referring to the goetic spirits?
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I see other people doing utter devotion and stuff like that. I said it's cool for you, but I don't get it.
To each
Uh,
their own, right?
uh, I've done a lot of work with both Mars and Aries,
Okay.
which same. Here's how I look at most spirits, including you and me. We are flows. We are patterns, right? We're flows. And so a lot of the deities tie into certain flows of energy and cross over that way. Like like temperature flows crossing in the ocean. Sometimes
Mhm.
you see some, well, Aries being modeled off of Mars, he's got a totally different flavor. Looking at, and considering the different uh, uh, countries that develop them, different backgrounds, makes sense. Aries is a dick, but boy, does he get done.
Yeah, he gets results.
Done. But Mars is going to get it done and then come back and tend the farm. You know what I mean?
Interesting. Interesting.
Well, start as an agricultural deity.
Right.
So
Right.
that's why he's going to come back and make sure that everything is correct. So,
Mhm.
and that falls into my personal philosophy that I've had since I was a kid: protect my family, protect
Mhm.
my home, protect my neighborhood, protect my city, protect my state, country, things like that.
Right.
That's a masculine trait. Sorry,
Mm.
people that don't. Not really sorry. Can you tell? If I say
Sorry,
I'm
not sorry.
anytime you hear sorry out of my face, I believe if you apologize, there's 4 stages to it. I know what I did wrong. I know how it affected you. I don't want to do it again because your friendship is valuable to me. And if I start, let me know.
Hmm.
I'll take those hard words.
Hmm.
That's how an apology should work. So
I agree.
you want that relationship and you want it to grow. So just changing yourself doesn't fix anything. That's
Absolutely.
part of that change. So,
Absolutely. So, what are some practices other than meditation and astral projection that you might recommend for beginner or intermediate level mages out there?
well, there's some things you have to start doing.
Hmm.
First of all, get a paper calendar.
Hmm.
Lux has taught me this. Paper. I've been doing this, 60 years at this time. She taught me that paper counts.
Oh yeah.
Get a paper calendar. Get program your phone with alarms for times to do things.
Hmm.
Find
Hmm.
a stick time to do things. Right. Find a meditation practice you can work with. Find actually 2 divination practices you can work with. And I
Hmm.
say 2, you can run a checksum between them.
Checks and balances. Yep.
Yep. Find a banishing system you can work with. And I don't do a lot of banishing anymore, personally, unless I feel I need it.
Hmm.
I don't do a lot of banishing because I don't ever step out of my magical space.
Hmm.
I
Right.
walk in power every day, every step.
Hmm.
And most people use that to say, okay, I'm done doing magic now. That is not what banishing is for. So, and journal. You
Hmm.
got to journal.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
If you
2 or 3 if you can.
Well, yeah, I agree. I have a dream journal. I have a daily journal,
Hmm.
and I have a specific working journal.
Yep. Yep.
There we go. So that's how I work it. And do you have any more?
I used to. So I used to have. I keep a dream journal, a daily journal, and a working journal. There was something else that I used to keep years ago, but off the top of my head, I can't remember what it was. Yeah, it slips my mind now, but now I just make sure the most important ones to me are my dream journal and my workings journal, because a lot of the times I can tell what I'm doing day to day based on my
Mhm.
dreams and my workings, but I still try to keep a day-to-day journal.
Yeah, it makes all the difference. And
Hmm.
it's funny, they tell you to try and forget everything in chaos magic to avoid lost results. Well, that's the one way you can forget it. Because it's like, did I remember to turn off the stove before I left?
Right.
You go through that a couple of times, you figure out how to remember, not whether you turn the stove off or not.
Sure.
And that's what the journal really does for you, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
It tells I did this and this and this. I did this working. Boom, it's done. Then you can let it go. So it's a lot like your checkbook. Some people don't know what a checkbook is anymore. But this is Uncle RS. Back in the day, you used to write checks for everything, and you had to keep a register of those checks. So it's a lot like that. If you know that every Sunday you're going to do your checkbook, you don't have to worry about how much money you have.
Right.
The same thing with forgetting a sigil. Okay, it doesn't matter if you remember it, as long as you don't pay attention to it anymore. It's that attention, And
yeah.
I go with the illicit process for your brain. Licit is everything you can control actively. Illicit is you don't normally have control of and probably shouldn't have control of, right? So the problem is, and this is what's put out in most chaos magic, is in your licit mind, you got this process that's called the psychic sensor. They call it that. Basically a BS detector.
Right.
It takes bovine scatology all day long. For those who don't know, that bovine would be cattle, and scatology is the study of shit. Okay. Sorry for people language sensitive.
You're fine. You're fine. Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah. But the trick is, and your BS sensor gets in the way of your magic. That psychic sensor kills all that stuff. And trying to get things into your subconscious where the magic actually happens, your ill mind where you're not supposed to be in charge, which I think is kind of bullshit, but getting that into there where it does it, your psychic sensor says, no, it's not going to work. So it doesn't work. So that's why you want to not think about it, not focus on it, because you give it more exposure to that process that says that's highly improbable. Who cares how improbable it is?
Yeah,
go for it.
I was just going to say that's one reason to me why learning trance and hypnosis is so important, because if you can get that gatekeeper of the intellect and the ego out of the way, you can send stuff straight into the subconscious mind, no problem at all.
Well, I don't know about you. A lot of times I don't actually work a sigil anymore. I have an idea, something I need. I can't find my freaking keys. Boom. I calculate it in my head. Boom. There's my keys. I don't write it out. I don't have to charge anything.
Sure.
That's what it's about. And with practice, that comes. That's not a boast. That's hard work. If I'm boasting about anything, it's about hard work. And how many magicians skip leg day?
Yeah. So, it's really important to recognize what is still necessary in your practice. If you don't need the athame and the wand and the robe and even the temple space, you're just getting in your way. After enough practice, all of that symbolism goes in, and then you recognize, oh, I've always got my wand. I've always got my robe, so to speak.
I don't know if you've seen me. I've been really active on Reddit the last couple of weeks. That's what I keep. It's all in your mind.
I think that's where I found you. Somebody asked about ritual implements. Yeah,
and it's all that tool is all in your mind. And once you get to the point where you don't need that tool, you put the tool down.
Yeah.
Unless it's good, it can. I will unbox my tools every once in a while just because it feels good. It's like a good scratch. There you go.
Yeah.
Which that's what men would do all day if they had their sit on the couch and scratch. So.
Sure. So in your mind, what is the hardest part about being a mage or a magical practitioner?
I'm an arrogant bastard.
Okay.
I am an arrogant bastard. But I've mastered the arts of the mastered is the wrong word. I've practiced the arts of the physical world and the metaphysical for a long time. And when people tell me that's not going to work, or they correct me in public without any feedback about why they don't think it's going to work, that pisses me off. It
Naturally.
kicks me right solid in pride. And it's not something I've been able to beat, so far. I'm working on it. I don't know that it's worth it. That's the problem. I don't know that it's worth it. Sure, you want to do it the long way? Go for it. We'll see you in 20 years. See what you say.
Right.
I'm live. Hell with you.
So, how important is silence when it comes to this stuff to you? I mean, obviously, we're sitting here having a discourse, but do you think silence is overrated? Do you think it's crucial? Are you somewhere in between on that?
I think it's important when you start.
Hmm.
I think there's two parts to that. One is the silence of learning to quiet the mind. Okay. The other is learning not to have to shove it in somebody's face.
Mm-hmm.
And new ages, once they see something, once they do that $5 sigil, they want to show everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I have problems with that. So one day I'm delivering pizza. I'm working at the pizza shop. So that's what I did after I got out of the military, because I could do that while I'm busted up, right? So I'm in the pizza shop. I'm washing dishes. Guy comes in. He's going to rob the joint. I don't even know what's happening yet. And all of a sudden, I'm right next to him. And everybody goes, how does that happen? I don't know. Then they want to learn. No, you don't want to learn. Oh, I want to know how that happened. No, you don't want to know. I don't know. I don't know how it happened. Because I don't know how it happened. I didn't do anything. And the kid just dropped the gun and ran because he was scared. And I still don't know how it happened or why it happened or if it really happened or if everybody told me it happened.
Interesting.
But
Interesting.
the part comes after they see that. After they see phenomena they cannot explain.
Right, but they don't see all of the work that goes into things like that.
Right.
And they don't want to practice it anyway, so what's the point in telling them?
That's it. I tell them, okay, well, you're going to have to keep a journal and meditate for a month straight before you even want to talk about anything else. What? Okay. And then I tell them, okay, where's your journal? Because they don't do it. They don't want to know. See, I didn't want to know.
Right.
But great tips going on right here in this. Go and practice these for a while. Have a good life.
Right. Right.
So, and that was a real problem. People got really mad at me over that.
So. I can see that. What is in your mind? What are some things to avoid for the beginners out there? What are some things that should be avoided?
Anybody that wants money. Anybody that's going to sell for money. Now, there are some courses out there that are awesome. I'm not saying they're not. But I'm saying if they're going to show you a thing for money, there's no a thing.
Right. Yeah. There's no absolutely. Right.
$5 sigil. That is one thing. But if anybody wants to charge you, everything else you got to build up to. You got to practice to. You can't just do it. Well, I haven't met anybody who could just do it. There we go.
So how is magic generally viewed in your area?
I live in the inland Northwest, and so people are fairly open-minded because they come from everywhere.
Right.
We have a large Slavic community here, and they are really into their various folk magics.
I was gonna say, yeah.
So they'll accept anything weird that happens, kind of with a shrug, especially the older ones.
Sure. Yeah, they've been around.
They don't mind. Some people, and we also have some hyper religious Christianity types here, really irritated. Naturally, I don't know why. I personally am a practicing Lutheran. I don't understand why they would be upset. I don't get it. Sundays I'm a practicing Lutheran. Some of those people don't, but a third of the people quit when we voted to let gays into the church too. So there you go. I guess
I'll never understand some people. Yeah, I was raised well, my dad's side of the family was Christian, my mom's side of the family was Catholic. And in retrospect, I think about some of those ceremonies and I'm like, you guys know you're doing magic, right? Like this is all highly ceremonial and intentional.
Yep. You're
So
all just right in on this ritual. There's no wonder you have great successes.
exactly. Are there any major mistakes that you made in retrospect that you kind of thought, oh yeah, that was a mistake. I shouldn't have done that.
There is. I'm not at liberty to talk about that, to
That's
be
perfectly
honest.
fine. That's
But
perfectly fine. We can move on.
I am sincerely apologetic
Hmm.
over it. If I could communicate with the person involved, I would let them know that I am highly apologetic. I know that you were hurt. I'm not sure exactly how it happened, and that hurts me to a point. But I respect their right to not communicate.
Hmm.
So I cannot apologize further than that because I don't know what I did precisely, and I don't know how to make it right. If that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, I think that makes sense.
They have
Okay,
the right not.
so do what? I'm sorry.
They have the right not to communicate. So
That's understandable. Some people just don't understand that things happen, accidentally, and no matter how badly it hurts, it could still be an accident.
yep.
So any books or films that come to mind that are very magical that people might not think of off like when they think of magic?
This sounds kind of trite, but almost every movie out there is magical to some degree.
Absolutely. I love film because it's a mix between literature, orchestra, and photography. It's a perfect culmination of those three arts.
I agree. I think when I can't suggest that for other people because and be honest, because everything has its own appeal.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
But I suggest going back to the movies and music that you loved when you were in your teens and 20s.
Yes.
And listen to that stuff again.
Yes.
Because it probably wasn't aimed at you at that age. And you can get something else out of it. And you can learn so much more from it. One of my favorite movies of all time is The One, which is a stupid sci-fi movie. It's kind of a B movie.
I think it's got a great message.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
I think. But that's one of my favorite movies. And it is magical to me because it talks about about who becomes in charge in your life. Of all the you there are, who is in charge?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the two wolves argument. But
sure. Yeah, I love that suggestion for the reason you suggested it, but there's also an underlying concept there that I've found somewhat recently, which is if you go back into your past, you might find some negative subconscious programming that you absorbed that you're unaware of. I was singing old songs the other day and I'm like, holy shit, that is a negative message. And I've sung this song a million times. So I did a little bit of work to undo and dissolve those negative subconscious programming. So wonderful suggestion for multiple reasons.
I forgot you're an NLP guy. Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. So, anything that you'd like to learn in the future? Anything that you'd like to work on in the future?
There's one ceremony I have yet to do that I need to do. So I died when I was 20. I came back, obviously. And I have since been buried, went through that again, and left things behind in the grave and climbed out. But I've never done it from 6 feet.
Sure.
I want to do it from 6 feet.
That's intense.
It's intense when it happens. I'm down there screaming. The people that I mentor, they hate it because I go through that hell again. It's an amazingly powerful transformative thing. And I haven't been able to do it since COVID happen. So
Mhm.
I'm hoping here. I normally do it for New Year's, but I think I'm going to do it this year, maybe on my birthday. Maybe I'll wait till the anniversary of my death. I don't know. I haven't figured out. It depends, because I've got another medical procedure coming up. So I had this thing grow a thing in my brain, and they don't know why.
Yeah, if we might want to get some medical have your doctor what do you say, the medical approval before
Yeah,
you do that, just to cover your bases.
I got to be healthy.
I love the idea of the whole most initiations, especially in like 0 or 1st degrees, involve that whole death rebirth
Mhm.
process. And it's amazing how many practitioners I've spoken to who have physically died at some point in their life. And they every single time they feel like it's strengthened their connection to the spirit world.
Yep.
I myself am one of those people. Yeah,
It works. I don't know what to
it
tell
does.
you.
It's very effective, but it's dangerous stuff. So yeah, was there anything else that you wanted to cover? I know that we covered a lot of ground here. You mentioned that you were in the military. I mean, you've mentioned that you you've taught things, and now that you're retired, anything in between there that you'd like to share with us?
I'm not looking to teach individuals anymore. I've done it.
That can be, if I had hair, I would pull it out thinking
Yeah.
about that, because I've taught individuals, and I still do tutor individuals, but there's only certain ones that I say that I have the patience for, but it's because they are ones that have patience. You can only tell somebody the same thing so many times before it drives you crazy.
It's a weird thing. I don't I like getting on Reddit and giving quick responses to people, and then I'm done. And then
No commitment.
readings. I don't do any of that stuff. No,
Hmm.
don't if you see me on Reddit, Uncle RS, don't bother me with that stuff. If you got a real question, I'll try and find you an answer. But I'm probably going to find you a publication to look up and do your own damn research.
Sure, as opposed to an opinion. Sure.
Because mages have a tendency to skip leg day. They
Yeah,
want
they
to do
do.
it, and if you do it the easy way, it might work. But when something goes wrong, what do you do?
Hmm. Yeah. You you had mentioned having 2 systems of divination. My preferred systems are runes and tarot. Would you be able to share what your 2 systems are?
I usually use tarot and several tarot decks. I vary between which ones I use. If I do a personal reading, I always go with the Thoth deck, because I'm
I
so
love it.
familiar. But I don't use that for other people because it's kind of in your face.
It is. Yeah. And the symbolism is in your face, and it's also from a new aeon. So people haven't really come into the fold of the new aeon yet to receive that symbolism correctly. Yeah.
And it's confusing, and it just gets brutal. And that could be too, because you figured out I'm an in your face kind of guy.
I like it.
And,
I appreciate it.
well, I'm glad you do, because some people certainly don't.
I
Uh,
yeah, go ahead, please.
so I use tarot, and I learned from one of the former members of another Discord server. Geez, my brain is just cheesed up today.
It's okay.
I learned he talked about going to a bar and doing tarot readings for beer, right?
Mm,
Just to
interesting.
learn.
Hmm.
And I took what is it? The Book of Shadows deck with
Hmm.
me.
Hmm.
And for those of you who don't know that, it's a very interesting, intentionally made deck. It's got most of the normal symbols in it at some point, but it's also got
Some
deities and
variations. Hmm.
practices and things like that broken into the cards. So it's and the witch's cycle. It's got that built in there. All kinds of things like that. And so I found that I can let people understand that a lot better in that process, using that deck at a bar when people are drinking, because they're kind of simple anyway, right? And so I like using tarot. And then for a checksum, when I'm calibrating, I'll usually either use a pendulum,
Okay.
which my grandfather was a diviner, so that was
Okay.
kind of divining rods kind, but he did use a
Okay.
pendulum. So I'll use that quite often for quick things, just to verify.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll also use witches' runes or traditional runes,
Okay.
depending on how I'm feeling. It's a kind of thing. In fact, right now, the thing I use for a pendulum is actually the Fool. This is the Emperor, but
Okay.
which I wore for about a year. My daughters keep upgrading me, but I wore the Fool and the Magician, and then now I'm wearing the Emperor, the masculine path up.
Sure. Yeah. You've got a lot of martial current running through your life.
Well, I've served the gods, the red gods for years.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's no wonder. So you mentioned that your grandpa was a diviner. Was that just for practical? I know a lot of people will divine for like water or like where pipes are. Is
Yep.
that what it was for him, or was there
Yep.
a more practical or less practical and more spiritual aspect of it?
No, it was practical.
Okay. Okay.
It's funny. In old America, you had somebody in the village somewhere that did that,
Yeah.
and they were respected. Now you'll get looked at like you're crazy.
Right. Yeah.
But,
Yeah. My partner's stepdad is a plumber.
mhm.
And he pulled out the divining. We're both practitioners, and he pulled out the divining rods one day, and he's just a really, salt of the earth, simple guy. And he pulls out these divining rods, and she called me. She's like, so and so is divining right now. And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, he pulled out 2 copper wires and found water. I said, so and so did? And she said, yeah. I said, well, that changes my perspective of him.
That's awesome. That is,
It's still going on to this day.
it's amazing, and well, it's become more occult than it used to be, divining for water, because now everybody can't do that devil worship and stuff.
Yeah. So, go ahead, please.
I was done.
I was just gonna say that I think it depends on a lot. It has a lot to do with the area that you're in too, because I know if you go to some more liberal places like Portland or Washington, there's tarot tables everywhere. I mean, you can't walk down the street without finding a tarot table, but I'm in the Midwest here. I'm in right at the top of the Bible Belt. And so, I mean, the fact that I wear all black will have people scowling at me sometimes. And I just wear all black because I'm all over the place mentally, and it helps me concentrate and focus. Well,
Mhm.
that's one of the reasons that I wear all black. But people give me the dirtiest looks. So of course I don't tell them what I do, part time.
Wait till you get where I am and you do it full time. It's no end.
If I wasn't a student, I would be doing it. I'm going to school for kinesiology right now so that I can be a physical therapist, because I do spiritual counseling, and then I
Mhm.
teach. So I do counseling part-time, and then I teach part-time, and then I'm also a student part-time. So I'm going to school for kinesiology so that I can help people physically and spiritually. No matter what their problem is, I want to be able to help them. But once school is over, I'm probably going to be looking at full-time employment with this stuff.
I've never worked so hard as when I retired.
That's what I hear. That's what I hear.
Maybe it just seems that way, but yeah, it's fun.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, and is there anything else that you wanted to cover? I think we hit most of it.
Well, maybe a question for you. What's your best resource for guiding you in exploring a clip art?
So, aside from Jung, which is a strange suggestion to most people because they don't understand the relation, the 2 greatest resources that I found early on were The Night Side of Eden by Kenneth Grant, which is more about the tunnels than the Qliphoth, but it does discuss it, and Kabbalah, Qliphoth, and Goetic Magic by Thomas Carlson. Those 2 resources gave me enough insight that I could start formulating my own systems. and started doing my own exploration. And I work through the Cliffoth and the Sephiroth over and over, because like they say, you can't step in the same river twice. As soon as I get to the top and I go back to the bottom, there's more there for me. So my biggest resources would be practically David Rico is a psychologist. He has a book called Shadow Dance that is really good. And Jung's The Red Book can give you really intuitional insights on the Cliffoth, as opposed to like practical ones like the books that I mentioned. Aside from those two, there's some like more new people. One of them is someone named VK Jahanam. Another one is Asanoth Mason. These are newer people that give more some suggestions that you might run with.
Right.
I would ask you the same question. What's your go-to if you have one?
I haven't done it successfully.
Okay.
I started. Okay. That's something I'm going to be doing this next year. I guarantee you.
So what my go ahead.
Across the abyss.
Mm-hmm.
But I've worked my way up multiple times. I think I can do it now. I'm confident I can do it now because of some of the things that happened in the past couple of years. I got ripped down to nothing.
Sure.
Time, you know,
right.
I've been denying that, and I've just been being mighty warrior or what have you. I went by the name Hephaestus for a long time in honor of Hephaestus. But I went by that for a long time, and Hephaestus is dead. You know, and I go through a period where I didn't know who I was.
Yeah, I mean that's what the abyss is all about. One, I hate to be pretentious enough to give someone who's got twice as much experience as me a tip or advice, but my approach, I have two differences how I approach it. One is I don't go up, I go down. I don't access the Cliffoth through Da'ath. I turn Malkuth upside down and access the Black Earth and sink down instead of going up and poking my head through. And another suggestion, this one can be dangerous. I don't approach it from a Martian perspective or a martial perspective. I approach it from a more Venusian perspective. I treat them as mentors, and like I said, this can be very dangerous if you don't have energy work and subtle senses unlocked. But yeah, I approach it from a Venusian, more of a Venusian perspective than a Martian one, and I go down. And a practical technique that I use is I have a black mirror, and I have sigils that I have made that are meaningful to me for those energies, and I will take a white chalk marker and actually draw it on the black mirror, and I'll light 2 candles, and I will turn the tarot card that relates to that. I'll take the 4 tarot cards. So if I'm working with the 6th sphere of Thagirion, I will turn all 4 sixes upside down on the table, and then sort of I just do like this passive gaze. And well, you know about astral projection, and I project through the field that is generated. And more times than not, I find myself in the Cliffoth. And if I don't approach it, if I don't experience it physically, consciously, then I will have dreams about it that night that I'll wake up and immediately start analyzing. So I guess those are the two tips that I've personally worked out myself that I might suggest to somebody.
I tried going into Cliffoth, and I could get there, but whoop, popped me right back out.
That happens.
You know, I had to get rid of what I was, and I had to deal with some. I'm 60 years old, and at 60 years old I had to deal with parental issues.
Hey,
so you know, that's how it works. And and I this all along, and I never really thought about what those problems, because I didn't need to worry about them. I had my life where they weren't influencing me, and all of a sudden they were. So you know?
It does, and it's so subtle sometimes that you can look right through it, or it'll look like something else than it really is.
Yeah.
And honestly, I wish more people were as honest as you are, because I feel like about 75% of the people who talk about the ordeals and the cliff off are either regurgitating something or just making it up on the spot.
Well, I've
So
tried 3 separate times, and each time I've started to travel, I've gotten there, I felt it, and one time it wasn't, I didn't get kicked out, I got pulled out, I got yanked out. So,
interesting.
yeah.
That almost sounds like an angel was like ripping you out of there to protect you or something.
And I've used angels too.
Mhm.
The whole flavor. I'm an equal field player. I don't care. You
Mhm.
know. So, and a
Yeah,
lot of
same.
people.
I try to be as middle path as possible.
What? Most of those people are friends. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Yeah.
Most of
Yep.
those angels are friends in some way. They all work together. They have purpose together. And
Yeah.
people ask, what is an angel? So to me, an angel is a being that has a program. It has a pattern. It has to follow. It
Mhm.
has to follow that. And a demon is a creature that has a pattern that it wants to follow.
Interesting. That's an interesting perspective. My perspective so far, my perspective is constantly changing, but I have
Mhm.
experienced angels as more external and demons as more internal. Um, but that might just be my perspective. And I look at we may have talked about this before, but I look at the Shem and the Goetia as sort of like Sephiroth and Qliphoth of each other. There's a point where one becomes another, and I'm not sure if it's Lucifer, but there's one of the entities is like two-faced, and he sort of is holding hands on both sides.
Mhm.
For me, it's Lucifer. It might be another entity for other people, but I try to maintain balance. I think balance is very important. Most people call me left-handed because I work with demons and because I wear black and because I work with an adversarial currents, but I use that information to help as many people as I can. So
Right.
I think I'm middle path, but most people might see me as like 80-20. I don't really care at the end of the day, but it's just interesting where some people draw that distinction. So I guess that's a good question. If there is a difference between left-handed path and right-handed path, what is that to you? What is the difference?
I think that would be selfishness.
Okay.
Uh, uh, to me, the biggest thing separating most good and evil is why you do it. Doing
Mm-hmm.
it for your own only, or are you doing it for somebody else?
Mm-hmm.
Because you can do selfish things for your family,
Sure.
right?
Absolutely.
But you can also do things for your family that also benefits other people. But
Mm.
you can do so. That's one thing that most people and boy, some left-hand pathers are going to go off after this. So I know left-hand path. I have no problem with it, right? And gunslingers, you better put it back in the holster because I don't want to hear it. You get them too. I know you do.
They're everywhere.
So the fact is, your skills are not just left-hand path skills.
Yeah.
And you're going to find, or your skills are not just right-hand path skills. And right-hand path,
Yeah.
be aware that your skills apply to them too. And here we go. Here's where the dark people, oh, the left-hand pathers, your tools are better used in the hands of your opponents, your supposed opponents. They use them better because they're careful about them. They worry. They focus on the result. They're concerned about when you work with metal hammers, you got to be worried about splinters. Splinters.
I see. I see. That's an interesting perspective. Yeah. For me, left hand and right hand paths are more, this is the way that I currently am choosing to define it. I suppose the right hand path to me is about seeking unity through compassion, and the right hand path is about seeking individuation through adversity.
Yeah, I can see that.
But that's probably a middle path magician's perspective on the two. We get a lot of edge lords who are like, oh no, the left hand path's about power, and then we get a lot of white bunnies who say, oh, the right hand path is this. But at the end of the day, I mean, like, and oh, that's what I wanted to mention. What you said is absolutely true. All of the left hand path techniques I use were derived from the right hand path. I just inverted them to some degree. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
you got to give credit where credit's due.
well, it's something I've noticed, you know, and
Mhm.
all those tools are the same.
Yeah.
They're all the same. It's just a matter of how you approach them, years of watching martial artists. Okay. Watch a kung fu practitioner develop. They get massive style. Which gives them massive focus, gives them incredible accuracy. They don't develop a lot of power till later. Karate, a lot of power, a lot of how to punch another person. Not a lot of the flow and finesse and self-defense of a kung fu practitioner. But in the end, as you watch those masters evolve, they start fighting very similar when they get to each other. They may look, but if you look at the actual structure of the combat, it's the same.
Right.
You know, their elbows may have a different angle, but force. And that's the thing that I practice a thing called universal force dynamics. Okay, it's a thought about how any two forces can only interact in 6 ways.
I'm right there with you.
Force versus force, force versus force, force absorbing force, force turning force, force leading force, force avoiding force, and force harmonizing force. We work together with the other force. And if there's more than 2, then there's only 2 you got to worry about. The one,
right.
You know, can I turn this force against this force, and then we can work on that one together, or whatever we got to do. And then there's 21 factors, too long a list to go into, but all the elements where you determine which you're going to do. If you're not obviously stronger than your opponent, you don't use force versus force. And I apply that to my magic.
You should. Yeah, absolutely.
If I have a situation I want and I know I'm powerful enough to do it, I can brute force it. Like the finding my key sigil thing. I don't have to think about it. Force versus force. Boom. I got it. I just do it. Right. Whereas if you're not as practiced, and I'm not saying this as a bragging thing, it's a time thing. People always equate my saying something like that as bragging. I'm powerful. I'm not powerful. I'm practiced. I got lots of effort into things. Right. That's the thing that they got to understand, because I did leg day.
Yeah. Momentum, right?
Momentum's one of the factors. Yeah. Comes down to it. So yeah, it is. And momentum's an important thing. I lost momentum for a while. You know, just recently I lost momentum. I'm just, look at me. I'm a fat blob. And for the past 2 months, I've been doing hammer work. I don't know if you've seen mace workouts. I've been doing a hammer workout, 8-pound sledge workout.
Oh, geez.
Miles and miles and miles with my dog. He looks at me dirty now when I get the leash.
That's funny. Dogs are always so honest too. Like, you can just feel their judgmental glares as they look at you.
Yeah. It's fun. Anyway, so I don't even remember how we got here now. But universal force dynamics is an incredible thing. I saw you writing it down.
Yeah, it's something I'm going to look into for sure.
I don't know if you'll have any time finding it. I'll send you where I found it. Right here. No, it must be on my other bookshelf. I found it in a book. It's in the back of a book on training martial arts to military people.
Okay.
Right. So, and it was just this back like 20 pages of the book, where the guy's notes from how he came up with this concept of how to train military people better. And, I looked at it, I was shocked when I saw it. And my boss at the time, he looked at it, yeah, that's kind of neat. He was more interested in the rest of the book. I said, no, look at this. And I put it up on the wall, the 6 ways and the 21 factors. I put it up on the wall in the office. And one day I walk in and he's sitting here looking at the wall. Oh, battery warning. You still there?
Yep.
Give me a 10% battery warning. I'm good. I got 10%.
All right.
He's looking at the wall. He says, this is really incredible. Everybody else I've ever handed it to, they say, okay, whatever. And then they come back a week later and say, or however long it takes, okay, I get this. This is neat. This is so useful. And then they start applying it to their martial practice. They start applying it to their marksmanship. They start applying it to everything, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's the way it is. And
yeah.
I'm a war guy. I don't know what to tell you.
Hey,
sorry, sorry, Pat. You're welcome.
Yeah. I appreciate the tip. I mean, at the end of the day, like there's always some kind of war going on, whether it's a spiritual war or whether it's, what have you, there's always a way to, and I've actually got a copy of Sun Tzu's Art of War for Managers on my bookshelf here. And it's war is applicable everywhere, even in peace, so.
One of the last people that I've agreed to help, he's working on a shoal. And I said, you need what you do, get a copy of The Art of War and the Book of, and you need to write a sigil for every individual item you find in that, and then arrange it so it works for you.
I love it. Most people don't want to put that much effort into their life, though.
If he doesn't, it's not my problem. Sure.
Yeah.
I gave you the tool.
Right. You can lead a horse to water, right? But you can't make it drink.
So anyway, that's how that works. I love the philosophy behind that because it breaks everything down simple. You can start drawing arrows between everything in your life. Because I don't look at war as in people killing each other. I look at war as conflict management.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you're always going to have that. You're always going to have some kind of war going on. You're going to have war. Mm-hmm. So if you look at it as conflict management, the pacifists in your allotting, which you probably don't have all that many, but
not yet, no.
But the ones in your audience, you have to be ready to step aside if nothing else. Mm-hmm. You can't. When the car comes rolling down the street, you don't stand there. You get out of the way of the car. That's management. Mm-hmm. That's war. You're avoiding the impact. Yay for you. Mm-hmm. And not everybody grab it to be aggressive in a conflict management. They're not. So part of the fun.
There's that, and I mean, also it's applicable for those of us who have mental disorders, and like I struggled with impulsive thoughts, rather intrusive thoughts. And to me, that's like a war. Like sometimes I'll see a cute little rabbit or something, and the next thing I know, I'm thinking about punting it across the yard. I would never do that, I love rabbits. They're one of my favorite animals. So those of us that deal with anxiety and especially depression is something that I struggled with growing up. If that's not a fucking war, I don't know what is.
I'm cyclothymic. It's a short-term bipolar.
Okay.
I got a 21-day cycle from, and if I'm not watching it, it's a bad thing. So I understand where you're coming from, that depression. Mm-hmm. I respect real bipolar, people that got a year cycle or longer. I respect that. That's hard to get through. Depression can be, it is literally a killer. So get treatment, get your meds.
Yeah. Yeah. And obviously seek medical advice before you just try to start with the ground up when it comes to fixing your life. Don't sit here and try to wave your wand at every solution. Right. If you've got a problem, start from the ground up.
Right. You need a practical solution. Looking for a power cord. I don't have one here.
Okay. I think we're about out of time anyway. You said that you needed to leave at a certain time.
Yeah, in a few minutes. Yeah, I'm getting close to it. I didn't realize we've been talking that long.
Yeah, we've been chatting for a while.
Been good. I'd like to do this again.
Hey, you're more than welcome. Yeah.
One thing I want to add, I got 3 rules
Okay.
that'll make your life happier. Own your own shit. So
Mhm.
if you see a problem, it's your
Yeah.
problem. You fix it or find somebody that can fix it.
Mhm.
Created that problem, it's obviously your problem, right? Own your own shit. 2, rip out the negative. If it's not making you stronger, find a way to get rid of it. You can turn
Yes.
it into fire, you can burn it for heat, you can just toss it, whatever you want to do, but get those weeds out of your garden.
Yes. Yes.
And the third one, and I think this is the hardest one for most people, let your brain do its job. All it does 24 hours a day is answer questions. Ask it the right questions. Don't ask yourself why you're stupid. It'll tell you why you're stupid 24
Mhm.
hours a day, the rest of your life until you get it to stop. It'll tell you why you're stupid because that's all it does. Your
That's
brain
all.
doesn't play into it. And so those 3 things, and then I have what I call rule 0. You do you.
Right. Be
Everybody
yourself.
else,
Right. Yeah. That second rule it resonates with me to a very deep level, ripping out the negativity, because I did struggle with depression. And here's the way that whenever I'm teaching people how to deal with their shit, people always do one of 2 things. They either focus on the positive or they focus on the negative. And I think both are useful. So here's how I say it: fertilize the flowers and whack the weeds. You
I
have to
love
do
it.
both. Yeah, I
Yep.
love alliteration. So fertilize the flowers and whack the weeds. If you do both, you might be surprised how beautiful your garden is.
Excellent. That's awesome. I got to go pick potatoes because I just remembered that.
Well, thank you so much for being on. I hope you have a great rest of the week, and maybe we'll have you back on sometime in the future.
I love talking with you, man. It was great. You have a
Awesome.
mag time.
Thank you so much. Be safe, and we'll talk to you. Bye.